I sipped Galloway wine while resting on a Galloway beach. The twin suns of the planet cast their rays across the skies, creating a prismatic hue that was simply orgasmic for the eyes, and worked wonders for my skin, shifting it from blue to the healthy, flashy purple that all Siripions envy. The beach house, whose porch I sunbathed on, hovered above the shifting waters, some distance from the shore. To the side, other beach houses floated, their thrusters generating a steady hum as they processed energy from the air to maintain their hover. It cost 1 million credits to keep a beach house floating. That was pocket change for me. An attendant brought me a commie device while I sipped. He carried the communication device on a golden tray, and with careful, long, knobbed gloved fingers, he lifted the commie and handed it to me. I took another sip of the wine, ignoring the commie. I was on vacation. I'd earned it. Yet my eyes still peered at the commie's caller ID. I took it as timidly as the commie had been offered. Galua was a planet built for vacation. Its people had customs, respectful ways of living that ensured whoever followed them lived among them with great respect. I was getting bored with all the slow, deliberate movements, from how one asked for directions, gently pointing in the desired direction, to how one haggled over goods, moving their hands gently and drawing out the O's with a soft drag. Every planet had a physical language, and as an astroanthropologist, it was my job to decipher it. Galua had been hard to crack, and I'd done it. It was the first planet in 600 that I'd assimilated into. With my genius, I managed to sway it to join the Galactic Federation. It was my job to conquer discreetly, by giving the actual conquerors knowledge of the society and an easy means to take it over. Some called it colonization. We called it conquest. Galloway was my first success. It was also where I stored my money after being paid for a job. I just deposited 15 billion credits into my account for the job on Zenisa 5. Those primitive beings who communicated by whistling were tough to crack. I have a permanent pout from all the damn whistling. But I'd done it. I'd never failed. I answered the commie device, shifting my sunglasses up my nose as I placed the wine glass beside me. Talk. Eva? Only my friends call me that. For the rest, it is Dr. Evangelixia. This is the planetary head of expansion for the Galactic Federation. A somber yet deep rumbling voice spoke for the commie. I immediately sat up, taking in deep breaths. I composed my tone, lacing it with the respect required when addressing someone of such high rank. Pardon me, sir. The commie's user display was blocked. I couldn't identify the caller. How may I be of assistance? Congratulations on the Zenisa 5 job. You come highly recommended. The person on the other line sounded pleased. I downplayed my eagerness for praise. Anything for the Galactic Federation. Well, I'm glad you said that. You see, there's a planet we need assimilated, one that 672 other astroanthropologists have failed to assimilate. Oh? They were chased away? I wondered. I had to show eagerness for details. I loved the societies that chased astroanthropologists away. They always had this sense of accomplishment whenever I found myself breaking bread with them, finally a part of their society. Accepted at last. They were all killed, the head of planetary expansion answered. What? This was a hostile level 10 situation, a society completely against assimilation. The details are rather stranger than you think, Doctor, but if anyone can assimilate into the society, it is you, or so they say. I heard the challenge in his tone, but I knew not to bank on matters of ego. Immediately, I switched to the one thing that makes an employer hesitate. How much is the pay? A long pause, and then 400 billion credits, but we shall give you 4 astroanthropologists to aid you. They will serve under you. My eyes widened, as is customary for my race. The pores on the backs of my hands abruptly glistened. The amount of money spoke to my senses, promising a lavishness unlike any other. I could buy a continent with that money, maybe somewhere on the Andromeda side of the universe, where assimilation has yet to be done. I could get a galactic permit and assimilate the society as I wished. I could build a utopia and rule as queen. My heart raced, then my mind halted. I recalled the whistling I had to do, day in and day out, until I deciphered language from pitch. That was hard, and the price was 10 billion credits. 400 billion credits meant that the task ahead was no simple matter. Are you in? I did not think twice. I am. But then a second thought came to mind, depending on the answers you'll give me. A pause, then. Ask. Are we doing Protocol 616? That was the most important question. All astroanthropologists had a technique for assimilating into a society, a closely guarded secret that ensured their trade was sought after. Protocol 616 meant that upon their death, their secrets were made public to the next astroanthropologist to undertake the assimilation project that caused their death. This way, I'd have knowledge of why their assimilation technique failed. Negative. What? 600 have died. Surely, can't you see that... The last 400 astroanthropologists died with full Protocol 616 greenlit. They had knowledge of all recent astroanthropologists, and their methods failed too. The last 200 did a better job without knowing what the others had done. We feel this will be the best route for you. It dawned on me. That was why he'd given me 4 junior astroanthropologists. 4 tries to understand the society before I set foot there. Then again, they could be lying, withholding information for another reason. On one hand, I was terrified. On the other, I was thrilled. A challenge at last. Where others had failed, I would be the first to succeed. I will be in contact, I said. I placed the commie on the golden tray as the assistant stood by. Prepare a flight ship freighter for the Federation's capital, I said. I got up from the rays of the twin suns and stretched. A smile spread across my face. Nothing was hard for someone who could fit in anywhere. The planet's name was 17173, a number, unassimilated. Its inhabitants had no connection to engage with. There was no way to know the terrain or understand the history of the place to see whether it could spur profit. I expected a place riddled with erupting volcanoes, constant earthquakes and hurricanes. Instead, as I observed the planet from orbit aboard a colony research cruiser, I found myself in awe of the planet. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. It had rivers of fresh water, lush trees, air rich with oxygen, fertile land, plenty of game, and terrain easy to traverse and build on. The inhabitants, a sentient species that walked on 2 legs like I did, and was similar to me in almost everything but the shape of the eyes, the slope of the head, and the colour of their skin. Theirs was a rich maroon, had done just that, but not building on a citywide scale. They clustered in various locations, forming towns with an even number of individuals. They interacted, speaking a language that, to our surprise, was a twist on the galactic alphabet, easy to master and speak, using letters instead of corrugated sounds, meaning they must have learned it from somewhere. All in all, it looked like an easy planet to assimilate, not worth 1 billion credits, let alone 400 billion. As head of the project, I immediately sent a junior astroanthropologist down first. His name was Rugor, a budding talent in the industry, said to have learned the language of an aqua race by speaking through bubble formation, deep under the sea. We equipped him with an interface so we might experience what he experienced. We tied our neural network and we lay in pod cocoons upon the ship. As Rugor made landfall on planet 17173, we were with him as passengers in his mind, our sensations linked. We felt the cool breeze waft across his face, the rich smell of nature, and the sounds of birds fleeting through the canopy. It was beautiful, the sight something out of a dream. Rugor did the usual surveying, observing the ground and the air. We could not speak to him directly. The interface did not allow that. We could only witness. He took data samples off the ground and the fauna that looked succulent. The planet was a profit mine, something the agricultural sector of the Galactic Federation wouldn't mind digging their pudgy fingers into, no doubt about that. Rugor then approached a small homestead, carved from wood in a looping wave, designed to ward off nature. He did the usual first contact protocol, speaking with his hands held out before him. He approached a trio, likely a family, consisting of two large persons dressed in garments that clearly defined their sex, and a smaller one who resembled an infant of about 10 years. By the way the girl held her mother's hand, 5 fingers, big and small, clasped together. I could tell their sentient nature was predisposed to forming a family, which pointed to marital rituals and other boring, easy things I had encountered before. Gregor seemed to reach the same conclusion. The family stood on the front porch and observed him. He, of course, had a plasma pistol strapped to his person in case of violence, but it turned out there was no need for it. The family accepted Gregor, talking animatedly with him. They fed him. They asked him questions about him, and Gregor answered truthfully, or so we assumed based on his body language. He was given a place to wash and bathe. His clothes were cleaned along with the plasma pistol, which they returned to him in good order and working condition. As Gregor was given a room to sleep in, and his interface went blank, we logged out and popped a bottle of champagne. We high-fived each other and filed the assimilation as a success. My fellow astroanthropologists laughing and patting one another's backs as we talked about how we would spend our money. The next day, Gregor went about helping the family, cleaning the house and integrating himself among them by proving his usefulness. They praised his grit, and the male in charge of the household spoke fondly of his youth. Their society appeared peaceful, judging from what Gregor heard. When asked about his society, Gregor talked about the aquatic planet he'd visited, and as he spoke, the female adult in the house lifted something akin to a machete and struck Gregor in the shoulder, cleaving him to the chest. Then the male adult pounced on Gregor and sank his teeth into his neck before ripping free a pound of flesh. Pink blood spurted out of Gregor. The astroanthropologist died when the child forced her fingers into his wide eyes. We experienced all of this, screaming all the while as the neural interface overlaid everything that happened to Gregor. We did not eat or sleep well for several days. We pored over what must have gone wrong and formulated a rule. We must not discuss other planets, for it drove the inhabitants of the planet 17173 to violence. The next anthropologist to descend on planet 17173 was Clarinia Polica, a Valexian from Gambino 5. Instead of hair, she had flesh-like purple tendrils that waved when her kind were distressed. She trained herself in mental fortitude, to the point where her tendrils always lay flat on her back. She used this to become quite an adept astroanthropologist, having assimilated 20 planets so far. Clarina avoided the dwelling where Gregor died, choosing instead to walk the path to town. Gregor's death taught us one thing: the locals were peaceful until something within them changed. Our hypothesis proved correct when Clarina met locals on the road. We were tense as she exchanged pleasantries, but nothing untoward happened. Her tendrils didn't move once. Laughing, she bade the merry trio of old farmers goodbye and headed straight for town. The town was built from the same wooden material as the house where Gregor was butchered and mauled. Various buildings clustered in a semicircle, each housing some kind of business. Hundreds of locals roamed about. Some talked animatedly, while others attended to their tasks. Children played, chasing each other, pointing at Clarenia, and laughing when she made faces at them. Some locals murmured greetings to Clarenia, or pointedly ignored her. This pleased us, as it suggested a distinction between individuals and society, meaning it was unlikely a hive mind. As we'd hoped, Clarenia reached an establishment that appeared to sell beverages, likely alcoholic, judging by the insensate local passed out at the door. As Clarenia stepped over the drunk local, he raised his head, his bloodshot eyes amidst yellow irises meeting hers. He smiled at her, and she stepped back. "Do you have any spare change?" the drunk asked. A rule all astroanthropologists follow is to avoid forming connections with a society's least reputable members upon first contact. Such individuals often rob, manipulate, or set you up for an avoidable death. This local stood out, his tattered clothes contrasting sharply with others. His eyes lacked clear whites, his teeth were stained purple rather than the majority's soft pink, and his hair had fallen out in patches, leaving a maroon scalp dotted with blue spots that suggested a skin disease. He was a walking red flag, or rather, a drunken red flag lying there. Clarenia had currency, as our orbital shots showed the locals used shaped stones as coins, which our printer could easily duplicate. However, forming a connection with the drunk wasn't advisable. Perhaps someone in their merry-making establishment would be worth spending the coin on. "No, I have no money, sorry," Clarenia answered, turning her eyes toward the establishment's open doors. She glimpsed the interior, seeing scattered tables and clusters of males and females indulging in brew and lively conversation. Motion drew her gaze back to the drunk, who abruptly pounced, drunkenly trying to wrap his arms around her legs. Clarenia stepped back to avoid him, and as she turned, she saw what froze our hearts. The entire town, the old, the young, the idle, the active, those talking in clusters or walking in pairs and trios, faced Clarenia, then charged toward her. The children ran with hands outstretched, faces blank, fingers curled like claws. Their once laughing faces now mimicked the adults, some of whom wielded crude, sharp-tipped weapons. A cook burst from his establishment, brandishing a large cleaver, leaping over rails as if his life depended on it, his tongue lolling, as he charged with the entire town toward Clarenia. The tendrils on her head stood on end, straightening before flaming up and down her back. Through the interface, we felt Clarenia's panic and fear shatter her carefully crafted persona. She drew her pistol and fired at the first woman who lunged at her. The bullet struck true and the woman fell, but 4, then 5 locals seized Clarenia's arm, ripping the gun away and flinging it aside. 4 gripped her left leg, 8 her right. They tore her apart as a toddler grabbed her tongue from her screaming mouth and yanked, just as the man with the cleaver arrived and drove it into her skull. I sat at a table, watching Clarenia's interface record on a flashing monitor, reliving everything she'd seen. My hands trembled uncontrollably, as they had for 3 days, despite my efforts to stop them. At the table, the 2 remaining junior astroanthropologists, a male Jorgan named Rugor and a female Serpion like me, Ethics, reviewed the same data. Our discomfort stemmed not only from Clarenia's interface record, but also from the orbital data our satellite collected during Gregor's and Clarenia's expeditions. When the family turned on Gregor, it wasn't just them. Satellite recordings showed every sentient inhabitant of the planet stopping their tasks and running toward him. Not only those in the nearby town, but also those on other continents. Some near the shore rushed into the sea, attempting to swim across the channel to reach Gregor's continent. Those in the highlands, miles away, had started running downhill in Gregor's direction. The effect was global, a sudden inexplicable need to kill that gripped the inhabitants at the oddest moments. With Clarenia, the effect was the same, but immediately after her death, everything returned to normal. The inhabitants resumed their duties. Those who'd waded into the sea walked back out. The town carried on its business as usual, as if unaware of what had happened. This wasn't a hive mind. It was something else. "Eva, I've got something," Ethics said. She forwarded a data file to my monitor, which I clicked and reviewed. I'd asked her to adjust the lighting of Clarenia's split-second view of the mirror-making establishment. The brighter colours revealed the bartender, a burly local whose maroon flesh stained his long shirt sleeves as he wiped a glass. I saw a youthful couple sipping from twin straws in a tall glass of purple concoction. Nearby, a cluster of locals huddled at a table, covered with their stone currency and cards. My eyes widened. "You see him, don't you?" Ethics asked. "What?" Rugor asked. "A human," I said. Almost everyone knew of them. What was one doing here, drinking and playing cards with the locals? I froze the image on his face, pale skin, dusty blonde hair, blue eyes, a pointed nose and soft pink lips curled in a widespread smile as he raised a card high, his gaze fixed on the table's spoils. His ears, eyebrows, chin, and soft stubble of beard stood out clearly. "Fuck. It's a bloody fucking human," I muttered. Rugor didn't waste time greeting people or smiling at children. He set a somber mood with his stride, one that screamed, "I do not want attention." It worked. People pointedly avoided him as he sauntered into town. Everyone except the fucking drunk. "Hey, do you have any spare change?" he asked, as the town went about his regular business. In the same spot where Clarenia had been brutally killed, a bloodstain still marked the wooden floor. Rugor smiled, took out 3 printed coins, and handed them to the drunk. The printer replicated objects perfectly, from the smallest molecule to the full form, though only inanimate items of a certain mass. The drunk took them with a smile and nodded back to sleep. Rugor scanned the town. Everything seemed normal, with no locals charging toward him. Our hypothesis was correct. The planet's inhabitants existed in a symbiotic-like state, where one benefited from the other. In short, if a local asked for something, you gave it to them. Rugor entered the establishment, and it was much as when Clarenia had. He turned his head, and we saw him at the same time. The human. He sat at a table, shuffling cards. The inhabitants, all male, crowded around. He dealt cards, and they held them to their chests, placing bets by sliding currency across the table. As they played, they spoke in hushed tones while a waitress stood by, observing and offering commentary. Rugor approached the bartender and sat on a bar stool. "What you having?" the bartender asked. "I'm not from around here," Rugor said. I would have approached differently, but Rugor was in his element. His tight leather jacket, strapped with combat equipment, contrasted sharply with his orange skin, beard, and green eyes, which peered at the bartender. Rugor's rugged appearance served as a warning, exploiting a sentient species' instinct to avoid danger. It seemed to work. The bartender slowed his wiping off the bar. "That guy's not from around here either. He visits every few years, spends summers, then leaves. He's been coming annually for a decade," the bartender said, pointing at the table where the human waved animatedly, talking to locals who looked upset, as if he were swindling them. "Culture juice makes him vomit from both ends, but garlic juice gets him talkative, and he enjoys that more. When he doesn't drink, he's worse. He would sulk, talking about his unloving father and his many siblings who are a major pain in the ass, and a girl named Julie who broke his heart. He calls us his therapy people, and this planet his therapy planet." "What?" Rugor wondered. "Did you not hear what I just said?" the bartender asked. "No," Rugor said. "I'd like you to repeat." The bartender moved swiftly, hurling a liquor bottle at Rugor's face. The Georgian, with cat-like reflexes, dodged it, letting the bottle glance off his shoulder and roll away. He turned, unsheathing twin blades from the leather strap across his midriff. 3 local men charged him, just as a stampede sounded, the entire town rushing into the establishment. Rugor fought until his last breath. I'll give him that. He killed 5 men in the bar before tripping on a body and falling, overwhelmed. The locals killed swiftly. 8 pounded his face, while the waitress skewered his midriff with a fireplace poker. His death was horrifying but quick. As he died, Rugor gave us the view we needed. Through swollen eyes he turned toward the human, who sat alone, his former crowd now killing Rugor. The human gazed out the window, oblivious or perhaps indifferent to the murder before him. "Ethics," I pleaded. "We need to approach the human and talk to him to crack the code and learn how to survive. He clearly knows how. That's all we need to do. Shut the fuck up, Eva!" Ethics screamed, climbing into the miniship. "I'm not setting foot on that crazy planet. I'm going home!" "You're an assimilator, Ethics. You can't give up. You can't abandon us because..." "Because what, Eva? Because I don't want to fucking die? Fuck off!" Ethics said, climbing into the miniship, firing its thrusters, and departing from the cruise ship's bay. I was down to the last dispensable astroanthropologist. Me. I spent 3 days reviewing everything we'd gathered. I couldn't tie the locals' reactions to a time factor, as the Fallen had died at different times. It came down to conversation. Something said triggered the global-wide urge to kill the perpetrator. But what was it? Was it the tone, a mispronunciation, or perhaps body language? I mulled it over and devised a plan, a foolish one I was sure no one had tried. As I descended from orbit, my hands trembled with the weight of uncertainty preying on my soul. Her fear was intense as the gravity pulling me down. I might die, but it would be on my terms. I ran down the path to town, ignoring everyone, even those who greeted me. With fingers pressed into my ears, I mumbled gibberish to block any sound from reaching my eardrums. I reached the bar, completely avoiding the drunk whose job seemed to be sleeping at the door and hustling entrance. Without a glance, I jumped over him and entered the bar. I glanced around, spotted the human still playing cards, and walked straight to him. Standing before him, I removed my fingers from my ears, stared for a moment, and asked, "Can I talk to you?" The human looked up and stared at me. He opened his mouth to speak, but glanced at the locals, whose eyes shifted between us, eager for an altercation. He placed his cards on the table, just as the local spoke. "Hey, Sam, you can't quit the game now. You've taken half my money," the local said. "Fuck off, Gloob," the human, apparently named Sam, said, as he stepped away from the table. "This isn't fair. You can't take half my money and walk away," Gloob said, waving a maroon hand. Sam turned and stared at the local. "Is it my fault you're bad at poker?" "Well, it isn't your fault, but you should at least give me a chance to win my money back." "What if you end up losing the other half?" The local pondered for a moment, then nodded. "Fair point. Be well, Sam." "Same to you, Gloob," Sam said, leaving the table. As he passed, he whispered in my ear, "Follow me. Do not talk at all." As Sam strode slowly past, I turned and followed. Outside the bar, the drunk raised his head to me. "Hey, Sam, got any spare change?" Sam lifted his boot and kicked the drunk in the abdomen. "Others are working their asses off," he shouted, kicking him again. "Trying to earn their keep while you just lie here." Another kick. "Get your lazy ass up and do something with your life, you drunk." With a final kick, he stepped over the drunk, who groaned, curled up, and heaved blue vomit onto the floor. To my surprise, a small cheer erupted from those inside the bar, and a pair outside who'd witnessed the altercation applauded Sam. I was very confused. I followed Sam closely behind, mimicking his gait. Here was someone who'd assimilated completely, no doubt about it. He cracked the code, but I doubted he'd share it. It was the most valuable information an astroanthropologist could have. A large, burly local suddenly pushed through the busy town's crowd, shoving everyone aside to reach the human. Sam seemed oblivious to the man until he stood before him, blocking his path. "Sam!" The towering local, 4 heads taller than Sam or me, began, staring down the human while pointedly ignoring me. "How long have we known each other?" "More than a year, I'd say," Sam answered, very calm. I quickly eyed his clothing, grey woolen material, a long-sleeved shirt, and odd shoes resembling unique footwear. There was no way he could carry a weapon in such thin clothing. Panic gripped me as sudden danger loomed. Several locals turned, their attention fixed on us. "Well then, Sam, can I ask you something?" "You're already asking." "Can I ask again?" "You already are." "Did you fuck my wife, Sam?" The local asked, taking a step closer to Sam. I expected them to charge, to run toward us from all around the globe. The whole world held its breath. "Yes," Sam said. "I'm sorry." "Why did you do it, Sam?" "She seduced me and I was horny." "Do you feel no remorse?" "I feel sad, but I'd definitely do it again if she offered." They stared at each other for a long time. "Why would she do this?" the local asked. "She told me you weren't giving her enough attention, but I also wasn't giving her enough attention either to warrant her wanting to lie with me, so I'm just going to guess and say only she knows the reason." "And why did you give in?" "It was erotic in a forbidden sense. I was coming between the vow of 2 loved ones and there was something at stake. I guess that's the full of it on my end. I don't know about your wife." They stared at each other. I physically and mentally braced myself to run in the direction of where the mini-ship was parked on standby, which would take me to orbit in case anything went awry with my plan. The large local abruptly bowed his head and started weeping. Sam reached out a hand, and touched him gently on his shoulder and muttered, "I'm sorry," before walking past the local and heading for the tree line that dipped down a hill from the town. I followed. I moved to speak, but he shushed me, ordering silence. We walked for what seemed quite a long time, until we came to an abrupt halt where a cottage lay in the middle of the woods. We entered the wooden house, and Sam pressed a button on the wall, before letting loose a sigh of relief. "That was freaking amazing," Sam exclaimed. "Damn, I have goosebumps. Check my arms." He held his arms out to me, pushing back the sleeve of his shirt to reveal tiny bumps upon his skin. "Haven't felt a rush like that in a while." I pointed to my mouth and he nodded. "You can speak. This place is soundproof." "What the fuck?" I halted my tongue. It wouldn't do to be vulgar if I sought knowledge from this man. "Why didn't they kill you?" Sam smiled at me. "They can't." "But why? They killed Gregor, Rugor, and Clarenia. They kill. They all come together and kill. Why didn't they kill you? You beat one, slept with another's wife. Why didn't they kill you?" "Because they had no reason to." I felt the moment my mask broke. Why the fuck did they have no reason to? What are you, their deity? Did you brainwash them? Why are they treating you differently? "They aren't treating me differently," Sam answered. That same smile plastered to his face. "They are treating me the way they treat you, and the way they treated those who'd come before you." I was so frustrated I could feel the pores at the back of my hand secrete sweat. "Please explain." "They only gather," he said, stepping closer to me, so close I could feel the heat of his breath. "They only change and come and kill when you lie." My eyes widened. Gregor answered the family that killed him when they asked where he was from, saying the aquatic planet he'd been to, where he'd just come from assimilating, not his original birth planet. Clarenia told the drunk beggar she had no money when she did indeed have money. Rugor claimed he hadn't heard the bartender speak, a typical figure of speech. A simple no that should spur the person speaking to repeat that statement. He had heard the bartender, he just wanted him to repeat his words again. My breath caught in my throat. I struggled to breathe. I was hyperventilating. "As long as you don't lie to them, they will not harm you," Sam said. "Do you want anything to drink?" He moved to what I could only assume was a beverage storage device, popped it open and took out 2 soft drinks. I declined mine and he opened one for himself. Taking a sip, he continued. "That's why I love this planet. You can't lie. Not to them, and you can't lie to yourself, not when they are listening. Any lie even one of them hears, and the whole planet converges to put you out. Fucking amazing." His eyes abruptly lowered. "Though it's not that good. I came here with a girl I wanted to marry, Julie. I told her I loved her while we walked through the town, and she replied, 'I love you too,' but they killed her. Turns out she didn't love me. She just wanted me for clout or something. I didn't even have time to figure it out. They make really quick work of you here when you lie." This was unprecedented. Such a society simply did not make any sense. Assimilation was easy and difficult at the same time. How would other societies integrate themselves into this one? Would everyone have to foster complete and utter honesty? Also, how would the Galactic Federation take over the planet? Lies and schemes were its main tools for conquest, so how would it succeed? Unless the planet was more than a resource, a weapon, or... "Oh, you're thinking about colonizing the planet, huh? It's been tried before. It never worked," Sam said, taking another sip of his drink. I urged him on. "You see, the frenzy they get into when you lie is only the tip of the iceberg. I've seen someone, a quite capable person with technological advancements that enabled him to levitate. He lied and easily escaped. They all chased, but it was hard to get to him because he could float up, high above their reaching hands. They climbed each other, building a hill of bodies in an attempt to reach him, but he went higher and higher. Then the planet shifted. The sentient life still chased from below, but the birds came after the guy, then the insects, then the wind was against him. Then the ground erupted where he landed. It's not just the inhabitants, it's the planet." "It cannot be colonized," I whispered. "Neither can it be conquered," Sam replied with a grin. "Yet you played cards with them? Poker?" "Oh yeah, it's the thrill, you see. Nobody plays true in poker. People always cheat," Sam said with a smile. "But here the stakes are higher than most. It's the only way I have to test them. So far I've realized they can cheat on their spouses and in games, but they don't lie. They can refuse to answer, but an outright lie is what draws their wrath. I am fostering a vice in them by understanding them, trying to get them to shift their collective ideology from being against lies to something else, or someone more potent. Like what, or who? I asked immediately, my mind churning with the possibilities. My father, Sam answered, seeing the blank look on my face. Oh, he isn't human. He adopted me and several hundred others of my brothers and sisters. We collectively hate the guy, and have made it our chief purpose to kill the bastard. My eyes widened. There was a rumor strung across the Galactic Federation in multiple iterations, an act of disobedience against the norm, perpetrated by a very powerful individual. What is your father's name? I pressed. I don't know. Nobody knows. People simply call him the Destroyer. He goes around destroying planets, and I think a planet that could answer in kind would be an amazing thing. Wouldn't it? Sam smiled.